Yes, hello everyone on YouTube. The YouTube comment section better deliver, because y'all make me laugh like nothing else.
Okay, we're good. Sweet as.
Right. Cool.
How is everyone doing? Because I'm so stressed out and relieved that this is pretty much over the line, pending the vote. And I have to bring something up with regards to that, because I'm expecting that this bill gets revoked, but it is on a notice paper, and I just want to show everyone the notice paper. But yeah, let's do a quick recap of everything that's been happening. We have what? 6 independents that we needed, and I started to liken trying to get each independent with the swing states in the US election. So the president needs to try to tip over a number of swing states, and for us, we needed to tip over, I think it was about 4 of the 6 independents, and in order of independence, we got them, and we got the landslide victory just like Trump did. So let's go through them. We have independent Senator Tammy Tyrrell. She said on her Twitter post, "I'm voting against the disinformation bill," and she put a whole explanation of why she was against it. And a lot of the senators have actually given a quite in-depth piece of their thoughts of why they decided to vote no. So you can go to Tammy Tyrrell's page and actually read it in detail. Second on the list was David Pocock. He came out and made a full-length video about 3 minutes on his socials explaining why he was going to vote no. But with regards to his explanation and a lot of the explanations that we ended up receiving, they all said that they didn't like it in its current form. So that's where we're sort of got to keep our attention up. Third one, we had Jackie Lambie saying that she was going to vote no, and in her statement, she said that after careful consideration and listening to feedback, I've decided to vote no for the government's disinformation bill. Handing the power to social media companies to regulate truth is risky. I'm not comfortable with the potential negative impacts. We need to address misinformation in a balanced way, and this bill isn't it. Next,
Is this meant to
after
be on the
that,
screen or nah?
oh yeah, I'll go through them all.
Cool. Because it wasn't
Pocock.
stopping.
There's Lambie. It's
Yeah,
been a long day.
it's been a long
Next to
day,
fall
long week.
was Payman. She made a 60-second video approximately discussing her thoughts about the bill. But she was going to vote no. She was the one that was going to put the vote into a deadlock. So if you look at the amount of senators that we have, we've got 76, and this is heavily predicated on Labor and the Greens voting yes. And the interesting about this is that the Greens could do something so hilarious tomorrow and just be like, "Hey, as a voting block of 11 of us, we're going to vote no as well," and they could really just derail this entire project altogether. But after that, we had the controversy around Senator David Van. So he made remarks and comments to the Sydney Morning Herald, saying that he was open to passing the bill and he has no problem with it. And then he got offended because this post here got shared by everyone. It literally started landing into pages overseas. He got so upset that he decided to log in to his Twitter account, which he barely ever uses. He's got 21 posts, and about 7 of them are from the last 6 days. he's had the most growth on his page over the last couple of days, maybe week, because of the controversy that we stirred up. This post got shared onto his page, and then he made a statement saying, "To be clear, I have not decided my position while I'm doing much needed due diligence to this on this legislation. This bill has significant flaws. I won't allow our citizens to be subject to. I've always held that our right to freedom of speech must be respected. The Senate committee inquiry has until next week to report their findings, which is true. And given it has more than hundreds, they've actually uploaded finally a few more, but only about 200. They're missing, tens of thousands still to go of submissions, I believe, that deserve to be heard. So please keep engaging with me on this bill as your views matter, but not using misinformation." Now, this is the funny part. He's accusing me. This is a stab at me. I can't believe in my 32 years of life, I actually have a senator accusing me of spreading misinformation. So please keep engaging with me on this bill as your views matter, but note, using misinformation does not strengthen your argument. So I responded and I said, "Hey, not only
Did he
are
delete
these..."
your comment or?
No. I definitely made a big deal out of it because I was so upset. So I'm just gonna go here. I'm gonna find the post. So Senator Van got upset, and I go here. "The criticism Senator Van received regarding his endorsement of the misinformation bill has forced a formal response. Check it out here." So this is what I just read. And then when I read it, like I only just woke up to this. So I'm like, okay, I reread it, and then I'm like, hold on a second, this guy's accusing me for spreading misinformation. What's going on? So then I go, also at David Van. So I wanted him to see this. "We didn't use misinformation to strengthen our argument. Those were your words. Take some accountability." And this is a screenshot from the article in the Sydney Morning Herald. Victorian Senator David Van, who quit the Liberals to sit on the crossbench, said he was open to passing the bill, which was why I quoted, because it was mainly about the power to direct platforms to take down harmful content. "If I'm right, and that's the full extent of the powers, I've got no problem with that whatsoever," in quotation marks. His words, not mine.
Is the
That's why
misinformation in the room with us right now?
in the room. So that's what happened. And then a spectacular chain of events. Final thing to happen with regards to Mr. Van. He came out during his 2-minute speech in the Senate this afternoon at about 1:30, and he goes and says this. And let's make sure that I've got audio shared, because this was beautiful to see.
"I rise to speak of the misinformation and disinformation bill. This bill, as it currently stands, has significant flaws that I will not be supporting. As the Senate is the House of Review, it is our role to do due diligence on legislation. And when I first saw it, a reasonable approach to tackle harmful content on platforms. But on any further examination, there are such significant defects in the bill that means that it should not pass as drafted. And I rise to speak about the..."
Hey,
Okay.
just quickly, before we continue, if you're tuning in and watching, can you please give the video a share so that we can reach people and tell them the updates of where we're at on the misinformation bill, please? I said we got 350 on X and 80 on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. And then Senator Van went and did this. So this was bloody hilarious from him. I saw this post just a couple of hours ago. So not only has he finally figured out the login to his account, now he's responding to everyone. So he's keeping account for everyone. So there's this thread here where he goes, "To be clear," and then translation, "I can and I will be bought off by Liberal because I'm by Labor because I'm being disenfranchised by the libs. Do you know where the count is?" I saw Malcolm Roberts say it's 38. So that was a deadlock when it was at 38 with Payman's vote, and then it's 39, and then we get a count update from David Van himself. No, count is now out of date. Then he added himself, Cyril, Babette, which was always known, Lambie, which I'll get to, Payman, David Pocock, Lydia Thorpe, Gerard Rennick, no longer with the Liberal Party. The Liberal Party itself have come out and said that they're going to vote no, and then One Nation, 40. So he's actually been giving us a count. And then it's versus the Greens and Labor at 36. So now we've got a good, 4 Senate lead. Run through these quickly.
You know what my favourite part is?
What's that?
No, go on.
Let's just run through these quickly. Lydia Thorpe came out this morning and said that she was going to vote against it. She put a statement on her account. I'll actually pull it up. But while I do that, I'll show you this video because I want to know people's thoughts. She did an interview with ABC this morning, Breakfast TV. And what happened was she was talking about legislation coming up in the last 2 Senate sitting weeks. And she said something strange about this part here, negotiating with the government, which I thought it was interesting. Pull this up.
The misinformation bill, for example, I won't be supporting that. I've been talking to community members and stakeholders. There's real problems with that piece of legislation where, black and brown people could be demonised as part of that process. So it's the detail, the devil in the detail in these pieces of legislation that I'm digging into and negotiating with the government to either fix it or I won't support it.
So she dropped a big hint there by saying that she's negotiating with the government, which is interesting because I think that all of the senators are probably going to be in some sort of consultation with the Labor government over the next week and a bit. What are your thoughts on that? Because you've dealt with this stuff before.
Yeah, so they have to engage in some level of perceived flexibility. So we're open to it. Please don't come down too hard on us, Labor Party. But we have valid reasons to say no to it in its current form. So it's almost like they're asking the Labor Party indirectly to actually amend the bill so that they can justify passing it. Because remember, and I was in a few comment sections actually this week with a bunch of lefties, and they're so on song with us at the moment in terms of the misinformation bill. Nobody wants this at all. So from her perspective, as in Lydia Thorpe, she's got to deal with her community coming down on her hard about their concerns with it. Because, one of the things in the bill is that if you're a threat to the Commonwealth or the territories and you can be under the umbrella of misinformation. So I cannot think of a bigger threat to the Commonwealth than Lydia Thorpe herself. So it's not really in her best interest, I suppose, to vote for it in its present form anyway. And similar with Payman. So a lot of her supporters are, on the streets over an international conflict, if you know what I mean. So that's their top priority, is to not be censored for all of their protests and political protests, or at least the promotion of them, is under fire in the misinformation bill. So that's what's going on there.
She's made a few interesting remarks because in her post, she goes, after speaking with a range of stakeholders. That's an interesting word. And I know a lot of people have been saying, like, what does she mean by stakeholders? All of a sudden, as soon as that came out, people were like, World Economic Forum? Who are you talking about?
No, it's a generic word, at least like in terms of corporate jargon. And I don't think it's any different in the parliament, where it's just stakeholders is everyone, any person of interest. And she did make a point of saying, I've been talking to the community and to stakeholders and whatever. So obviously, like when we think about the committee that we did a 9-hour stream covering, that's a range of stakeholders, for example, just people with a vested interest in the outcome, whether that be ethically or whatever, because they engage in the space. But that's basically what it means. She's just, the lip service element is just sounding fancy while she's making a basic statement that she's talked to everyone who cares.
I think she was actually the only senator that put a real significant amount of effort in her response, because she actually published a response on her website as well, titled "Senator
Yeah,
thought to
nice.
oppose misinformation bill unless major changes are made." I won't go through all of this, but the interesting part was the end of it, which I actually quoted in my post as well. I don't know how committed she is to this, and I don't know if there's any nefarious things within this statement, but this was this is my sort of favorite part of it. She goes, ultimately, we need to establish a Digital Rights Act and a Human Rights Act in this country. And before we have those rights enshrined, we need to be very careful with any legislation like this. Now, she made, I think it was an interview or a video where she said that it's going to affect Black and brown people. I
Yeah.
think those were the words that she said. So I feel like she's trying to say that she wants an enshrined Human Rights Act, which would be great, but it's not for everyone. It's probably targeted to the community that she feels like she represents, and she made it very
The
clear
true
by saying
sovereigns.
that it was the Black and brown people. So I really want to know, if I could find out from her, is she really committed to a Human Rights Act being enshrined in this country? And does she want that to be, established to be enshrined for everybody? Or is she so committed to her own cause that this is sort of like a throwaway statement?
Well,
Because
it's
if you're going to make
interesting.
such a go,
Yeah, it's interesting that she's brought it up because one of the things that I've at least been deliberately doing with this opportunity, and by opportunity, I mean it's so bad that they're trying to take away our rights that it's a perfect time to talk about the fact that Australia needs a Bill of Rights. Like, we really need a Bill of Rights. And I've heard that circulated in lefty circles as well as ours ever since, the debates have started, I guess, creeping up on the misinformation bill. I think that, like, I'm just going to go ahead and say, I think that any government that wants to go into an election using that is gonna win. I think that it appeals to everyone at a base level. Obviously, lefties will probably try and woke it up a little bit with their proposed idea of what a Bill of Rights looks like. But I think, as a standard, Australians want this just to protect their right to do what they choose to do, because it's becoming increasingly obvious that the government really doesn't care. And they want to take all of our choices into their own hands under the guise that we're too stupid to make our own decisions.
I'm just like, I saw a comment earlier this evening. Someone said that I feel so exhausted by all this, and ditto, because it's almost like a disgrace that literally millions of us, and there's thousands of us that have platforms, have to put such an effort just to defend our rights in 2024 in Australia. Like, we had to put in such a Herculean effort, literally moving mountains, to get every independent senator, and we basically coerced them into making a public statement and declaring their position, into saying no.
I don't know if it's weird, but I'm kind of the opposite on this. I enjoy it because
Oh,
there's no greater feeling than getting everybody jazzed to cyberbully these people into doing the right thing, which is basically what we've done. We've put them on the spot. Everything's gone quite viral across everyone's platforms, and pretty much everyone in the space has been sharing the same content straight out of the horse's mouth. And all we really do is clip what these politicians say and distribute it to the masses. But somehow they're mad about us, like, making their words famous, because once upon a time, nobody cared what they did for 9 hours in front of a committee, for example. So I'm enjoying it, because if we can make a habit of this, and yes, it is exhausting, it's annoying, but it shifts the power back to the Australian people, which I think we really, really do need. Just like, if you were a common parasite cosplaying as a parliamentarian who cares about people, I cannot imagine anything more annoying than what we're all collectively doing with this stuff. And so, I don't know. I maybe have a different view of it. It gets me excited when people get angry enough to start taking their rights back. Because there was a while there where there was a bit of a lull in traffic where we semi-cared, but it was more like we're brewing contempt for this sort of moment.
We the one thing I think that's really exhausting is the fact that you know, a lot of us have been doing this. There's some people even way before us, even you before me, had been doing this stuff for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, literally committed a whole life into campaigning against government overreach. So it's just insane that we've had to go through this. And I think the upsetting part is that we know that we're forecasting that they're going to try to do this in the next 3-4 months from now, after this sitting period's finished, and then you've got an election cycle coming up. So there's going to be a whole lot of different curveballs that they're going to throw at us. And then once the election tips over, we're going to have to deal with a whole bunch of other senators and a whole bunch of different members of parliament. So all of the faces and names that we've been campaigning to over the last couple of weeks and months, and then the last 3-4 years, there's going to be a whole new wave of government. More than likely, there might be a whole bunch of new senators, depending on what happens. A number of the ones that we've campaigned to. So we've got David Van. He's up for re-election. Probably will lose. I'm not sure if you know anything about David Van's spot in.
I mean, I would imagine, like, if I were the Liberal Party and all these allegations were floating around, I probably wouldn't put him back on the Senate ticket. But I don't know. I haven't actually looked into it. He doesn't overly interest me, other than when he says something completely annoying and, you know, goes out of his way to perfectly encapsulate why the term misinformation is too loose by accusing people of misinformation for quoting what he actually said. That's the extent of my interest on David Van.
And then I don't know, again, you probably don't know much about it, but not Lydia Thorpe, old mate Jackie Lambie, she's also up for re-election as well in her seat in Tasmania.
That will be interesting. That would be very interesting. Since she lost Tammy Tyrrell, I'm interested to see if any of her infrastructure has dropped off because of those decisions. But yeah, it'd be good. I'm actually glad to see new faces in the seats, because we have been just, like, every waking opportunity they've had to put something shitty through the parliament, it's been pretty much an overwhelming yes. And then they've just kind of, you know, prodded the independents a couple of times and made their sort of back end deals to get things through. And lo and behold, we're stuffed, because we probably weren't as organised in terms of conservative politics at the last federal election. And there were a few reasons for that, like melting down communally about the World Health Organization and things of that nature, I believe really demoralised people in the lead up to the federal election. Like, a lot of people weren't voting, but I think now people realise, at least in terms of the Senate, their vote actually counts and matters. And I think that's the attitude we probably need to go forward with.
The one thing that I don't want to happen when it comes to the Senate, compared to, say, America, where you've got a good leader, at least on face value now, with Trump, that has the Senate, the House, and the White House, where legislation can just pass through with almost no impediment. I don't want our independent and Senate to fall into a position where there's no checks and balances on legislation like this, because I made a comment on Twitter the other day, which it actually just clicked with me as this stream of thought was coming from someone that commented on the video, and it made me realize if we didn't have Lydia Thorpe and she was still a Green, and if we didn't have Fatima Payman and she was still a Labor senator, this would have been passed months ago. So I am so glad. We are blessed to know that they had left their respective parties, because this would have been a slam dunk home run a long time ago.
And like, the telltale sign of that being an issue to the major parties is those media pieces basically saying that, like, are independents too unstable to be in the parliament? and just like highlighting all the fallouts and stuff because they hate it. They don't have that control they once had. And that's what gets me excited about it. I don't feel, I don't know, I guess I feel more prepared going into this coming federal election is the way that I'd look at it. Because I think that communally, our voter education has gone way up since the last one. And I'm really excited to see how it turns out. Pending the people on the right side of politics don't run trash candidates. That's always possible. It's possible. But if they just put people that are inspiring, with a bit of backbone, a bit of mongrel, the sort of true blue types, common sense types, and hey, maybe even a star candidate would be nice if people could stop pretending that they have one and actually have one. That would be good. It just gets the general public excited for change. And I think, you're absolutely right. We're lucky that these parties managed to piss off these individual senators to the point where they're out of the party. Otherwise, we would truly be stuffed. But that's what I mean. We've sort of been deadlocked. And I guess like Fatima Payman, David Pocock, and Lydia Thorpe, they're semi-reasonable, but within the scope of the agendas of the respective parties and backgrounds that they come from. So it takes sort of niche things to get them upset. And that's what we've seen because, both lefties and people on the right and conservatives are upset about the misinformation bill.
So now that we've got the numbers that we need and we sort of have a bit of breathing room now with regards to the vote, we have a couple of other issues that we need to deal with. And the one thing that I feel like that I wanted to do now was shift the focus. So at the moment, there is a proposed piece of legislation that still hasn't been tabled yet with regards to the social media ban for 16-year-olds and under. Now, the problem with this that we currently have is that the draft legislation has not been presented yet. And based on commentary that I've seen, both in the news and online, it doesn't look like that this will be tabled this week. Now, I'm going to say that, and then I'm probably going to be terribly wrong, and it's going to be listed on the notice paper tomorrow. However, they only have tomorrow and Thursday this week, and then Monday to Thursday next week to get this done. So they have 6 sitting days left to try to get this done. Now, it's going to take a huge effort.
Yeah, and elbows out till Thursday. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're going to have to try to pass this in the next 6 sitting days, and Albo doesn't return until Thursday, and he's apparently going to try to make an effort to return on Thursday by question time on Thursday, which is at 2 p.m. So I feel like his goal after dealing with international affairs overseas is to try to get all of his ducks back in a row and try to at least get something passed. But until then, we don't have too much to deal with. We only have articles like this. So let's run through this quickly. So the proposed digital duty of care amendments, which is the amendments to the Online Safety Act, which is overseen by our best friend, the e-safety commissioner, will force companies behind digital platforms such as Instagram and TikTok to proactively keep Australians safe as they use their technology. Before the duty goes ahead, new laws will be introduced that will restrict children under 16 from using social media. And I put a post up earlier this evening where I said here, I go, it's an amendment to the Online Safety Act with good intentions, but from what I've read, it needs to be passed with the under 16-year-old bill first. So it's a double whammy. So the good thing that we can all be happy about is that we've almost effectively killed the social media bill, the misinformation social media bill. The problem that we now have to deal with and get our head around real quick is that we have a double whammy with this. They're literally throwing a combo at us. So this bill, once it's tabled, is going to be presented with the digital duty of care amendments as well. So we have to keep our eyes and ears open for this. Now, on the surface, from what I've read, this looks like it's going to be not bad. I mean, it's good. It's duty of care. It's going to put the accountability on the platforms to actually make sure that people use their platforms aren't going to be susceptible to harms. Although there are, mechanisms that do that anyway. I think they want to strengthen it. Such harms include financial losses through scams that target Facebook users. These types of scams, including those that use unauthorized images of celebrities, were examined during a global fraud summit in London earlier this year.
I'm going to pause you there for a second because it's
Mhm.
important because what we were talking about earlier today, they're also putting through a range of different things in the way of cybersecurity. So it looks like they're putting together the sort of infrastructure for that broad spectrum regulation in that way, where they're going to know about financial scams and, all these things are going to start being reported really comprehensively to the government. So that's what it looks like. Continue.
Yeah, so it looks like on surface that it's not going to be such a controversial amendment. But the problem is that in order for that to go through, the social media ban needs to go through first. And the problem that almost everyone now understands outside of our little circle is that in order for this ban to be effective, they're going to need to use biometric scanning, facial recognition, or digital identity technology to be able to ban under 16s from using social media. And that's where this unfortunately comes in. So, for those that don't know, in March earlier this year, the digital ID bill had passed through the Senate. Now, I'll quickly pull up the results. And while I do that, you can talk.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure our best mate David Van's the reason why that one went through from memory.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
he
want to pull
rolled
it
at the
up.
last second, I think. Who else stuffed us over on that one?
I want to pull it up because I use this as sort of like the measuring stick for how we were going to try to deal with the misinformation bill. So I've got it here. So what happened was the digital ID bill on March 28 was voted with 33 senators that voted yes in its original form, and then we had senators that voted no. So the Labor Party all voted yes here, and then the Green senators voted in a block of 11 together. And then the independents that tipped it over were David Pocock, Senator David Van, who didn't have a Twitter at the time, mind you. I wrote here, no official Twitter, which is freaking hilarious considering the state of affairs that we found ourselves through.
He
And then at
does
the time,
now.
Jackie Lambie Network, Jackie Lambie and Tammy Tyrrell. So they had voted yes in a block. So everyone now knows these names and faces because we have forced their commitment to vote no on the misinformation bill out of them.
Did
But
Lydia
unfortunately,
abstain from voting?
I believe she did abstain, yeah. So
Yeah.
let me just run the numbers quickly. We had 33 that voted yes, and then if I can get to like the rest of the thread, I'll be able to see if I wrote down who voted no.
I
And
think off the
actually,
top
one
of
more
my
thing
head,
that happened.
I was just going to say, I think people didn't show up because they knew they were stuffed on the numbers anyway. And so a lot of people sometimes just won't even show up to vote because they know it's going to pass.
Yeah. So what happened even before that? Malcolm Roberts, bless that man. He actually put in an urgency motion with David Pocock, which it's so strange to me that these things happen. So David Pocock and Malcolm Roberts said, "Hey, we want to try to get this bill taken out of the Senate in terms of the list of bills that need to be voted on." Pocock said, "Hey, I want this bill to be removed with Malcolm Roberts." And it was negated because it was a deadlock at 33-33, which means that it stays in the list of bills to be voted on. And then when it came to the vote, he ended up saying yes. So he
Yeah,
supported
and
the
the
idea
fact
of having debate on it, and then he ended up voting yes on it when they said nah.
it's all coming back to me now, and they put what limited discussion there was on the bill in a private room away from the main chamber. Wow.
So it was a real big sort of facepalm moment. But yeah, so the digital ID bill passed in March of this year, earlier. And I've showed this video a few times, and this is the most recent sort of repost of it that I put up a couple of weeks ago, where I said that our best friend, Katie Gallagher, had said that the digital ID bill is promised to be safe and voluntary, and it's scheduled to be rolled out now in less than 2 weeks. The starting date for the digital ID bill is December 1st. So I think what is concerning is that they've already got one part of their sort of puzzle that they're trying to put together already through. They've got a date for the rollout for the digital ID bill being on the 1st of December. And now they've got 7 days effectively to try to put this into place, where this sort of fits in with that digital ID piece, where they go, all right, we've got the digital ID bill, we're building the infrastructure. Now we want to figure out a way to compel the people. So it's like, it's almost like they've got the pandemic with the digital ID bill, and now they just need the vaccine to coerce people into succumbing.
Now, like where I run into difficulty, and this is where it annoys me because we don't have the draft legislation in front of us just yet. But one of the things that I've been saying, and I firmly believe this is possible because our people power is important, and also coming into an election year, because they're dumb enough to debate this so close to the election, we have a lot more sway over what happens in the parliament. So I'm of the opinion that even if their proposed method of digital ID verification, their proposed method of identification was digital ID, if we cracked it hard enough about that, I see an avenue where there could be a third-party identification process, similar to what they do now in terms of verifying accounts. There's a separate sort of platform that handles that, and it's not necessarily just like digital ID, married up in any official way. It's just your usual sort of driver's licenses and things of that nature. So I see pathways out of it until it's technically written. But even if they write that it's going to be using the digital ID framework to access social media, well, good, because we'll literally rage if they do that. That's probably the best case scenario in my mind, because it's going to get everyone off their butts for an outcome. No one's going to be happy with that.
Now, this is where you're wrong. Now,
okay.
The one thing that people may have forgotten, but I have not forgotten, touching on what you were talking about, is that, remember, not that long ago, everyone's best friend, Bill Shorten, came out, did a whole freaking press club speech and said, hey, we're going to have Trust X come out. So here, Trusted Exchange, TEX come out, which is a proof of concept digital ID token that is going to be used as a QR code system. So he actually used the example, and then used an example where they come out and you scan a QR code at a pub, for example. You go to a Yeah. So these are things that people are forgetting. So even though they might not get us with the misinformation bill, they've got the trust exchange. They've got the digital ID bill actually passed. They've got a social media ban to try to coerce everyone. So these are the things that, thank God, someone is keeping tabs with. So this is actually what they're going to try to use now. They're going to try to use this trust exchange that Bill Shorten threw out there before he dipped and said that he was going to retire and become a chancellor at a university in Canberra, and go, hey, all right, if this fails, just let you guys know, Bill Shorten dropped this bomb on us a couple of months ago in August and said, hey, we're going to have a digital ID tokens instead. So although what you're trying to say as a form of token verification, theoretically it sounds good. It's always going to come back to some sort of digital ID.
Here's the thing. Now, unless they're profoundly stupid, which is also possible. It's probably plausible. Like the way I would do it, again, if I was a common parasite posing as someone who cares about the people, I would put that trust exchange stuff in front of people, but I wouldn't mandate it. And I'd give them a much more difficult avenue to verify their ID through a third-party app. So you'd get the bulk of the normies consenting to that and getting onto that platform, and then you'd hammer them hard with future dystopian shit, which would then force, say, the 15 to 30% that don't want to use digital ID onto that service later. That's how I would do it. Now, I hope they don't do that, because to be quite honest with you, we need the reaction from people to see very suddenly what's happening.
I don't think anyone's going to be happy with the even suggestion to have any form of these pieces of technology and bills being passed. I think there's almost a feeling of like, even with the digital ID being passed, I'm already sort of thinking in my head, what does the government need to look like to get this repealed? And for those that don't know, if a bill is to be repealed, it needs to go through the exact same process that it did when it passed. It needs to go through the House of Reps, needs to get voted on through its reading process, and then needs to go through the Senate exact same way that we're currently dealing with. And then it needs its assent from the Governor General.
And the current problem we have, like more broadly, the reason why the social media ban is difficult in relation to the misinformation bill, and why the misinformation bill is actually somewhat difficult, is because the flopposition supports one but not the other, but will not logically understand how the two intersect in terms of the violation of human rights. And so we have this pile of mixed messaging. And I know everybody's saying that the misinformation bill is dead. Okay, but remember how every time this seems to happen, where we think something is dead, somebody gets converted? And unfortunately, members of the flopposition have the ability to cross the floor. And so my concern is less so your Paymans, your Thorpes, your Pococks and whatever. My concern from the beginning was going to be that we'd have, for example, like your Kovacic's and all these other characters that seem to step out against the broad views of the Liberal Party and do their own thing for whatever reason that may be. And so I almost think it's worth, and this is why I was saying earlier in the week, it's a really good idea to actually flog members of the coalition to demand that they publicly state their stance on both the misinformation bill and the social media ban. I mean, some of them aren't for the social media ban. I mean, Matt Canavan isn't all for it. There's a few out there. And, you know, even today, what was it? Lydia Thorpe and Payman, they voted with Malcolm Roberts, didn't they, about the urgency motion in regard to that.
Yeah, I'll
Parental
see
rights.
if I can pull that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually saw some funny comments because people were like, this is a very strange sort of coalition of people that came together. So there was a vote. Actually, this was something different. So Malcolm Roberts put in a urgency motion for the Senate to recognise that basically parents should be able to determine whether
Yeah,
their
that's what I'm
children use
talking
social
about.
media or not. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he
Yeah.
came
So
out and
they
said
voted
that,
for that.
and they supported it. So it was a strange coalition of people where you have Payman and Thorpe coming together and voting on it. And then we've got our sort of regulars with Pauline Hanson, Malcolm Roberts, Ralph Babette, and Rennick. And then Tyrrell, you know, she's all of a sudden become a bit of a champion.
And this is what gets me excited, right? Because this demonstrates very clearly that nobody wants this. The loudest voices on the left and the right side of politics don't want this. And one of the things that I've seen, particularly from the lefties, is, oh, kids are old enough to go to jail, but they're too young to use social media and all these sorts of things. So they've cottoned on to the fact that the math isn't entirely mathing in terms of the proportionality of certain restrictions. It doesn't make any sense. And so where was I going with this before? I was on a tangent. Lost it.
That's okay. I'll quickly go back to this. So I just want to sort of get people's head back around to the trust exchange thing. So this was in August. So NDIS Minister Bill Shorten officially announces a new government digital ID scheme called the Trust Exchange. It is a collaborative effort with Finance Minister Katie Gallagher, who, again, just so you know, she was the one that declared that the digital ID bill would be safe and voluntary. And then, going back to this, as part of the digital ID project, it has been allocated an $11.4 million budget for its rollout and has partners with Google and Telstra involved in the development of its technology. Everyone's favorite company, Google.
That's right. Yeah.
Bill Shorten ended his National Press Club speech at the end of his quote by saying, "Imagine if we practiced radical trust in the people." And let me play the clip because I'm sure it's hilarious. I can't even remember what he said.
It's muted down the bottom.
There we go.
Yeah.
All right, go back.
In development that we call the Trust Exchange, or TEX. I'm collaborating on this project with my colleagues, Senator Katie Gallagher, the Minister of Finance, who has carriage of digital ID, and the Assistant Treasurer and Minister for the ATO, Stephen Jones. Service Australia is partnering with other government systems to develop TEX, to give Australians the ability to verify their identity and credentials based on official information already held by the Australian government. I want to stress that TEX is currently in the proof of concept stage. We have an $11.4 million Commonwealth investment in the build-out as part of the digital ID project. I think business is keen, and to be clear, TEX will be an opt-in system. I suspect people...
Opt-in system, and this is how it starts. You voluntarily opt in, and then you start to tighten the screws, and then eventually it becomes mandatory.
So, like, the way it works is like, sorry, the normies will jump onto it because, oh yeah, like whatever, she'll be right, like no one cares, and they're just too lazy and like completely detached from like future consequences. And so in this scenario, we need to literally grab people and be like, do not sign up to this system, because it's going to be an issue of majority later down the track. And if they're seriously saying that, and they could be lying because they always lie, all they do is lie, but it very well could be voluntary and opt-in in the beginning till there's a point where they're at about a 70 to 80% threshold, and then it's like, screw the rest of you across the country, you're all getting digital ID now. And that's a scenario that we don't want. Anyway.
Their feet once they have an option, and they'll choose businesses that offer them the convenience of control and security of TEX. I'm pleased to advise that Telstra and Google have welcomed the opportunity to be involved in the development of this important step towards our digital future. And the Tech Council of Australia, the Commonwealth Bank and employment platform SEEK have all given in principle support for TEX. Imagine if we practiced radical trust in the people, the consumers of government services, and we listen to them about what they need and how they want to access it. In return, we may be rewarded with the radical trust from the community necessary to fulfil our ambitions of an easy, useful, simple, safe, seamless digital future. Thank you very much.
Now, my favorite part that I want to tie all this into quickly is that he goes, imagine if we practice radical trust in the people. What happened a couple of weeks ago? A COVID report came out, and what did they determine? Anyone? What did they determine? Come on, comments. YouTube, let's go. What did they determine in the COVID report when it comes to the trust in the people? What did they say? Anyone? What did they say?
You're like, anyone,
it was overreach.
Someone.
They can't trust us. They don't trust the people. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's funny how Bill Shorten's words are now being...
Honestly, he did some funny stuff before he yeeted himself out of the parliament. I mean, teaming up with Pauline Hanson on the NDIS was really off-brand for him. But I'm very curious about how many shares he has in TEX. just asking for a friend. I really would love to know if he has personal shares in this company.
I mean, I'm sure there'll be some sort of bit of information that will come out on the fallout of that. But yeah, so a lot of this is really going to come full circle, and a lot of these things that we're so focused, we've been so focused on the misinformation bill, and then now that we've got the numbers for this bill to tilt, all of a sudden we start to need to focus on things like this, the duty of care and the social media ban bill, and then you've got the duty of care amendments to the Online Safety Act, but then you got to rewind a few months ago and say, oh shit, you got Bill Shorten laying the groundwork for another form of digital ID, which is the less invasive version of digital ID that other people have suggested. And then you need to rattle people's brains and just remind them that the actual digital ID in of itself is not only going to be rolled out nationally in a week and a half from now. You've got a commentary from Katie Gallagher a few months ago saying that it's going to be safe and voluntary, just like the safe and effective. So a lot of this is not only coming full circle now, but everyone's attention all of a sudden needs to be pulled back about 6 months from where this all started earlier this year. But yeah, anyway, let's sort of recap the rest of today's and this week's and this month, for that matter, crazy events. So this is something that I actually missed as well. So from Kat, she goes and shares this post from Payman. She goes, Senator Payman is hitting a stride as she comes out strongly against the proposed ban on children accessing social media. She's criticizing the use of face scanning or digital ID to verify age. And then she made a few comments on it. So I'll play this and then we'll sort of discuss the fallout and the rest of things that we need to start to focus on. But she made some interesting points. It was really cool to see this.
The Australian government is trying to regulate an internet that they do not understand. The most obvious evidence of this was from a line from Minister Rowland's speech at the Sydney Institute last week. The minister, in a speech no doubt pored over by her sagest advisors, said, and I quote, "In 1985, Bill Gates brought us the Microsoft operating system," end quote. For the benefit of those not as learned as Minister Rowland, Microsoft is the company, Windows is the operating system.
You're muted.
She's using Michelle Rowland's comments against her because of a technicality. I'll go back to it again. It's so freaking hilarious. I love how Fatima Payman actually caught on that because I missed it. I was so focused on her saying something else that I actually missed this technicality.
Speech at the Sydney Institute last week. The minister, in a speech no doubt pored over by her sagest advisors, said, and I quote, "In 1985, Bill Gates brought us the Microsoft operating system," end quote. For the benefit of those not as learned as Minister Rowland, Microsoft is the company, Windows is the operating system. The government's proposal to outlaw social media for kids under 16 is the legislative equivalent of this ill-considered speech. The government has two options when it comes to age verification and assurance. The first option, verification using biometrics such as face scanning, will make the ban a joke. The only effect of this version of the ban will be creating a new household phrase, "Mum, can I scan your face?" The other option is to use ID to verify age. This will require every Australian on almost every social media platform to provide ID, which will need to be stored for an unknown period of time. In an age of unceasing data breaches, we need to store less personal information online, not more. Remember Optus and Medibank? How will the government stop kids using VPNs to access social media? If the minister is listening, that stands for Virtual Private Network. It's an old fascination for Labor, restricting the internet. Recall the Rudd government when that reconstructed grouper, Stephen Conroy, pushed to filter internet content deemed offensive. The idea would have had the government dictate what you could and could not see, but was abandoned in 2012. Once the government sees how comprehensively skirted their social media ban is by young
Senator, your
Australians,
time's
legislation
expired.
will meet.
Senator Rennick.
Yeah, bang
yeah.
on. And shots fired. Her sagest advisors. Tell me you hate the staff without telling me you hate the staff. I caught it.
And then she made a post as well. So she goes, social media ban for under 16s is a farce and more government overreach. It will mean every Aussie having to use digital ID to verify their age, or biometrics like face scanning. Get ready for a new household phrase. Mum, can I scan your face? What happened to common sense?
I gotta admit, this chick is growing on me. She's growing on me. I didn't like her originally. Some redeeming qualities are starting to surface.
I mean, everyone's got an opinion. For me, it's like, I just want these people to like actually do the job and actually listen to their constituents and actually
Well, that's what I mean.
care
She
about
is,
everyone's values.
like, one time she is actually doing her job, and I'm confused.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are struggling to try to separate her background and the disputed citizenship status of her and all that stuff. I don't even sort of focus on any of that. I'm more focused on their role in government. As far as I'm concerned, until something happens with her role in government, we have to deal with her. That's just the way it is. I want to sort of try to get the bow tied on this whole social media saga. So the report on the social media committee came out yesterday, and the most funniest, interesting, compelling part of it was remarks from everyone's favorite senator, Sarah Hanson-Young, who has a background in being a young global leader at the World Economic Forum. I know some of my followers will love me reiterating that statement. So she tabled, I believe she may have tabled the bill. Someone tabled the bill, but when it was tabled yesterday, she criticized the bill, not the bill, the bill and the recommendation, but she criticized the report because there was a unanimous decision amongst everyone that was a part of the reporting committee that the recommendation for a blanket ban on social media is not a part of this report. So she is basically coming out and saying to Albo, hey, you want to ban everyone in Australia from using social media under age of 16? Wait a minute.
In our final report, of course, a lot of the attention was given to social media itself and how we make these platforms safer and less harmful and better for members of the public and users alike. I want to point out very clearly here that the most interesting thing about this final report is what is not in the recommendations. And what is not in the recommendations is a blunt ban, age ban on social media. That's not what we recommended. That's not what the unanimous report from this inquiry recommended. What we did recommend was a whole raft of things that could be done to tighten the screws on the big tech companies, to improve their accountability, to make sure they are legally liable and responsible here on Australian soil, that they deal with the insidious, horrible nature of their data harvesting, selling it off to advertisers and supercharging algorithms, particularly how that relates to young people. It talks about the need for a levy or a tax on these big tech giants. But not one recommendation in this final report says a blunt ban on young people on social media is a good idea. And why? Because the experts, we listen to the experts, and the experts' view is it's not. The experts' view is that this isn't how you do it.
I'll preface this by saying fuck the experts, but at the same time, I feel her frustration because in the misinformation bill, they had ample opportunity to actually come down hard on the big tech companies, which we mutually want that. The fact that these dumbasses can get in front of the camera and mouth song lyrics to some shit song and get millions of views, but you can't really like launch educational content or content that's good for young people's mental health is just so cracked to me as a thing. And the way that they tank our accounts as well for posting political content needs to come under scrutiny, because technically they're interfering with our very democracy. I mean, you'll notice during the lead up to any election, all this content that could be perceived as negatively impacting certain parties is getting tanked, and it's getting tanked really hard. And you would have even seen it just with the US election just gone. So that absolutely needs to come under scrutiny. But what did they do instead? Oh, we're going to give the government extra power to surveil everyone harder, but we're not going to make social media accountable whatsoever. And what she said about the tax, that's important. They capitalize off so many things to do with Australian people, and they're sending us backwards. You know, if we think about like natural selection, like the kids that are glued to all these ridiculous videos, they're not getting any smarter. Their self-esteem is in the toilet. Their ambition is to be some dickhead on a social media app influencing people for a living. You know, it's killing their ambition. It's mincing their brains. And all the Australian government is yapping about is dumb shit that has nothing to do with the actual problem. And so I cannot believe it was her of all people that bloody said it. I cannot for the life of me believe it, but it had to be said.
Yeah, I was surprised that it was Sarah Hanson-Young as well, you know, just based on, like, she blocked me on Twitter. I made a comment saying, hey, why did you do XYZ? And it got so many views and her mentions were probably blown up. And she was like, nah, stuff this guy. She blocked me. But yeah, you know, the good and the bad comes from, it seems, from a lot of these people. But if anyone wants to actually read the recommendations of the report, I have posted them here on my page. And the funny part and the funny name that they gave them, they gave it the title called Social Media, the Good, the Bad, the Ugly Final Report. It's kind of interesting. I thought it was a joke. And if you scroll down, I've posted the link here as well. So if anyone wants to actually read it, I'm sure there might be some parents out there that are interested to see what their recommendations were. I've actually posted them all, and then there's a link to the report. We are almost going to put a little bow on this whole social media problem that we're going to have to deal with. But this, with regards to the parents, is going to piss off a lot of you. So Miss Marielle Smith, this absolute crazy bitch, goes and says, and I actually couldn't believe she said this, like, people have this image in your head. I'm just sitting there, I'm watching the Senate on my phone. I'm like, yeah, I'm doing my stuff, working along. All of a sudden, I hear this bullshit. I'm quickly double tapping, rewinding a few seconds, and I have to play and listen to this. Could not believe that this woman actually had the audacity.
And just quickly though, she's not a crazy bitch. It's for entertainment purposes only, and he's probably wrong, and nothing he says should be taken seriously in a court of law. Please continue.
Nah, she's crazy.
As a parent and as a legislator, I see absolutely nothing wrong with government working in partnership with parents, in partnership with families, and in partnership with the community to keep children safe. Actually, I think it's a fundamental responsibility of government to do everything we can, pull every lever we can to keep children safe. And we know at the moment, when it comes to their online engagement, children are not safe online. Whether that's in terms of the things they're exposed to, whether that's in terms of the way certain things are marketed to them, whether that goes into bullying online, whether it goes into the prolificness of eating disorders and other mental health challenges for our children, we know they are not safe online. And there is no issue raised with me by parents in my community more than this one. Parents are desperate to keep their children safe, but who feel like this has become too big for them to manage in their homes, and they want the backing and support of the federal government. They want us to do something about this.
Okay, quick poll in the comments of YouTube, because I can only see YouTube at the moment. Anyone that's a parent, say yes if you want to co-parent with the government. Say no if you want to tell this psycho to leave you alone. Because she's
Yeah,
saying,
I'm just like, are the parents that want your help in the room with us? Where are they? I haven't heard from one. And if I have, it's somebody who has no like firm hand over their children, right? Like
you don't
that's
want to
a bit of a
partner with the
different
government.
situation.
It's apparently a fundamental responsibility of government to partner with people and their families. I can't believe she actually said that.
I said on Instagram that if I had children, I would be petty enough to like lodge her on my child's birth certificate and demand child support over this incident, just for the lols.
Yeah, I actually saw someone say that on the post originally. But yeah, so there are actually senators out there. You know, you've got Labor Senator Marielle Smith that truly believe and are adamant that they should have some oversight over the parenting of your children. And she was
Like-
so clear about it that she used a whole minute and probably longer of her dialogue in that statement to express that she wants to co-parent with you.
I honestly think that we need to get it through our heads collectively that every time they say things like this, they're literally telling us to our faces that we are too stupid to do it properly. That's what they're telling us. And it should be perceived in no other way other than they think they're smarter than you, they think they're more competent than you, and they think that you have no semblance of control over your own children. And that even if you did, you're not equipped to handle it. Please be offended about this because the audacity of this woman. I don't care what her credentials are. There's no credentials that replaces her as the primary caregiver of anyone's child. It's total shit.
And if anyone that's watching is from South Australia, that's your senator. So if you don't like what she said, pull up that video, go to her office and ask her, hey, why do you want to co-parent with my family, with my children? What are
Is
you
she from
talking
the
about?
wine regions by any chance? Does she come from the wine regions? It might explain a
What
few
are you-
things. I don't know.
What are you on about? So yeah, I think one thing that I feel a responsibility to do is to amplify when these senators are now up for re-election, which part of the country they represent, and try to mobilize people that live in these areas and be like, hey yo, what the fuck?
A woman on X, Madeline, she actually suggested earlier, I think it's a really, really good comment, is that we need to get kids actually lobbying the Greens about the social media ban because it's a huge aspect of their audience. And kids don't want to be off the internet either. So they're equally as irritated about this as probably parents are across the board. I think it's a really good idea to actually start getting kids involved with these decisions that affect them. So I thought that was creative.
Yeah, they actually, like Leo Puglisi, I know a lot of people know of him, or through 6 News know of him. He's been on a whole media tear over the last couple of weeks, talking about it to 7 News, the ABC. He actually did it was on the 7:30 report actually just last night talking about it. But yeah, it's interesting to see people starting to sort of be vocal about how it's going to impact them from that age. And you know, they've actually got an excellent ambassador in Leo to talk about it. But yeah, we're going to start keeping an eye out on whether they're going to actually table these pieces of legislation either this week or next week, and then come up with campaign strategies to try to get these bills also killed. I'm not going to play the rest of all these videos, but we had this peanut here, David Littleproud, saying that he's endorsing the social media verification program. And he said that he argues that implementing such a system would serve as an effective mechanism for parents to ensure their safety of their children online. So not only have you got Peter Dutton saying that they support it, and you've got the shadow communications minister, David Coleman, coming out and saying it. So this is Peter Dutton supporting it here. You've got David Coleman, the communications minister. You've also got Olmate here, that forms the coalition, supporting it. So our fight now, with regards to the social media banning legislation and also the duty of care bill, it is with the Liberal Party when it comes to the Senate, but it is not overly important to campaign against them with regard to the House of Representatives, because they have the majority anyway. But in saying that, I think we should start rolling out a bit of a campaign against the Liberal Party to at least maybe reverse on their decision now. So when it comes to the Senate, we can try to kill it there, because we can't kill it in the House, but we need to start getting the dialogue going now.
And also, like, on that, the House of Representatives is where, like, I would say most of the decision maker movers and shakers seem to be, you know, in Dutton or whoever. They need to hear how much nobody wants this. Like, it's like they're in this weird little echo chamber where they're not understanding that, like, every decision they seem to make is just committing electoral suicide. Like, there is no decision. Like, they just keep, like, monkey branching onto these weird things. And, like, if the Liberal Party could just be decisive, you know, say no to the misinformation bill and the social media ban. Just make it clean and simple for people one time, so that we don't have people jumping up and down like, oh, did they support this? Did they support that? Confusion doesn't win an election, okay? And this bloke seems like a nice guy, but he is no Barnaby, bro. Like, I don't retain what he says. There's no conviction. Like, none of them seem to be conviction politicians. Like, how are you going to win an election if you're just boring people every 5 seconds? I can't. Like, say something and mean it one time. More passion, more energy, more energy. You know what I mean?
I don't know if you want to say it, but remember the comment that you made to describe Little Proud?
Oh, no, that's going to get me dumped for defamation. I can't be saying that on video. Oh.
But yeah, a lot of this is confusing, and I'll show you guys exactly why. Because you've got Jackie Lambie coming out and saying that she is going to vote no on the misinformation bill, but then she comes out, I think this was yesterday, and she says that she supports the social media ban bill. So when we're talking about the 6 independents that we need to tip over the line, you've got Lambie, which is almost, you know, she's saying, at least unless she changes her mind all of a sudden, that she supports it. Which this is where the confusion comes for me. They say that they're against the misinformation bill, but then they're for banning children. You know, we really need to just get a clean dialogue on all of these pieces of legislation.
You know what I honestly reckon? I don't even think it's necessarily, because the way we look at legislation, for example, like, we understand what it means in practice, but what is intended, and we can separate the two. I think that a lot of the times when they make a decision on how they feel about certain bills, it's based on the intention, but not the implementation. Because in theory, it's a good thing to get kids off social media, but in practice, it's an absolute train wreck. How are you even going to do it? Like, there's no, like, viable pathway to do that. And then all the bad kids that you want off social media anyway are just going to find the back end ways to get around it and continue committing youth crime, if that's even part of your solution scope. So it's not practical, and it's probably more of a head doer for parents to actually implement it. So I think, like, you know, these senators need to get with the program in that respect, where we can say, yeah, okay, maybe it's a good idea to attempt to give parents more control back, but let's do education campaigns to help them, you know, gain a little more control over their children's lives, in the sense that they can positively influence them, rather than something so ridiculous. And it's probably actually more so going to isolate children from their parents if there's a disagreement about this. So it's just, where's the common sense is what I'm asking. Like, can we have a conversation about this without all the performative bullshit that's coming out of everyone's mouths? And that's, you know, on the left and the right. It's somebody please form a coherent perspective and discuss it like an adult. Because why are we talking about children on social media when we've got children in the parliament, clearly, that can't seem to come to a conclusion? I'm serious. It's like, anyway, let's play the videos, shall we? What's this, Dutton?
Yeah, so Dutton had come out earlier in this week, and he goes that he believes that there should be bipartisan support to ban teenagers from under the age of 16 on social media. So I'll run this, and then we'll go from there.
Social media has a big role to play in the lives of young Australians, and what we've said, what we announced in June was a desire to put the age at 16 before young Australians can access social media. The government's sat on their hands for all of this year, in fact, all of this term. Our argument is that there should be bipartisan support. We welcome the government's commitment to the announcement that we've made, but we think it should be legislated by Christmas. No carve-outs for the companies, as the government's now talking about. These social media companies couldn't care less about Australian kids, so we have to. And we have to make sure that the online environment is a safe one for them. And I hope that the government can present a bill to the Parliament next week so that we can pass it by Christmas and give what I think would be a really good present to Australian families and to parents.
No,
Question for the parents that are watching. Question for the parents watching. Does anyone want the Christmas present from Peter Dutton of banning your children from social media? Yes or no?
Yeah, I'm gonna mouth off about this because he's just inspired a fucking tangent in me. So the most sadistic part about this shit is that throughout the COVID pandemic, these motherfuckers couldn't be more in support of getting children on the internet to interact and form dependent attachments because they weren't allowed to see each other physically. So we have a whole generation of young kids, and probably kids that weren't even meant to be on social media, but probably emerged into the social media space early because of all these fucking COVID restrictions, right? And so we have these dependent kids that probably form some sort of traumatic attachment to their devices and to their social groups and connections that they have on these fucking devices. And now the government is saying, no, fuck you, this is bad for your mental health. We're going to take away the entire livelihood that you have built for yourself, that we forced you to do, away from you because it's not safe anymore. That's what pisses me off about this. Like, you're not understanding the demographic that you're speaking to. Because even if they're maybe 12, 14-year-olds, they would have been talking on FaceTime to their friends. I was talking to a mum the other day that said the schools made their kids get iPads because of all the COVID stuff, right? Zoom things, like in school, all these things. Kids became really used to using technology and it was a safe space for them away from government bullshit. So it's like, have they even considered the fact that they have actually contributed to the mass amount of kids that are on social media and dependent on it? I don't think so. I'm not hearing that dialogue because there's a lot of accountability to be had about this. Anyway.
Yeah.
I don't even have kids and I'm mad, bro. Like, I know that that's landing with parents at home. I know it is.
It's just like, I can't believe that he had the audacity to say, hey, this is a Christmas present for everyone. Let's pass this so we can put this under your Christmas tree. But yeah, I think we pretty much have wrapped up everything with regards to the commentary. I've basically reached up until today's posts with regards to updates on these bills. So at the moment, recapping where we are and where we sit, the bill, the misinformation bill on numbers is now killed. It'll be interesting to see whether they actually take this to a vote or not. I have the notice paper on my phone, but it's not allowing me to send it to my computer. but I'll just read it here. It's basically like a list of order of business. So I'll actually show you guys how I do this with regards to a workflow. I go to the Parliament website and I find their notice papers, and they have notice papers that they issue about 1 hour before the House of Reps and the Senate. And this is today's notice paper here. So today's notice paper for Wednesday, this is actually tomorrow. So we're getting an insight into tomorrow. So what it does basically, it tells you what they're going to do through the day sequentially. So we can actually go through it together. So what they're doing tomorrow in the Senate, they're talking about aged care. You've got the wage justice bill, universities accord bill. They'll have their 2-minute statements. Got a whole bunch of senators doing a whole bunch of yapping. Let's see if the word misinformation comes up. No. So the word misinformation doesn't come up. And the reason why it doesn't come up is because it's on this notice paper here on my phone. On the 25th of November, government business order of the day, communications legislation amendment, combating misinformation and disinformation bill 2024. So it looks like it's scheduled for the 25th. Now, it's going to be interesting because the report's due on the 25th, and it looks like they might try to run a vote on the 25th. So everyone's got to keep alert for updates to the 25th, because that's when it looks like it might fall, if they don't withdraw it beforehand.
Sorry,
yeah,
some of the
with
comments on
regards-
YouTube is just sending me right now because someone said it's like Kerry Chant's Christmas present with the vaccination.
Oh, yeah. I love these throwbacks.
Oh, that was gold. And she was so confident when she said it too. It was cute. But no, okay, so on this thing, so those who know what's up in the comments are like, it's not over till the fat lady sings. Now, all the independents that we were struggling to get over the line in terms of a no, in terms of the misinformation bill, they have left the door wide open to say that if you amend it, we'll likely pass it. So that gives us the opportunity. Actually, yeah, play chant first and then I'll just like continue that tangent.
I would recommend that instead of Christmas shopping, everyone shops for a COVID booster online or reaches out and to their partner to make them an appointment to go online for a COVID shot. And that is the best, exciting gift that can be given.
Oh, sweetheart. Nobody wants that. No.
We've gone from COVID vaccine boosters to be your Christmas present to now banning your children from social media as your Christmas present. How beautiful is the government giving out presents every year?
And meanwhile, we just want the coal back. That's the funniest fucking part about it. But yeah, okay, so back on the misinformation thing. So they've left the door wide open for amendments, yeah. So that's gesturing to the Labor Party, hey, fix this up, and then we can justify passing it for you. The thing is, though, again, if I was a common parasite posing as somebody who cares about the people, I would probably spend the next week trying to flip one of the people in the coalition or a few in the coalition to make up my numbers. And then failing that, I would probably drag it out into the next year in the way of amendments and probably wait till the people are distracted enough that perhaps nobody's going to care about this by the time the bill resurfaces. And they might water it down a little bit, but it still gives them a lot of leeway. I saw it brought up somewhere that a good outcome is actually for us to ensure that we have the numbers to bin the entire bill and to get them to put a motion forward to vote on it so they can't delay it. That would be awesome, because I'm sick of this trend where they don't get the numbers that they want and then they pause it so that that shit legislation can resurface down the track in almost the same way. I don't think that's fair. I think, you know, they've put it to the people, everyone's pissed off about it, we need to vote on it and get it done. But again, it layers into the fact that I really want to see everyone at home hammer members of the Liberal Party and the Nats in the Senate and ask them definitively what their stance is, so that we can really have that in writing. Who do we have? Who do we not have? Because I do not want to see any sneaky shit. Like, when I tell you, I will fly into a blind rage if I see a few people cross the floor to vote for this at the 11th hour with no indication that they were going to do it. That is going to be the worst situation. So I reckon we hammer the libs, and once we're sure that we definitely have the numbers, we get some of our friendlies to force the vote on it. I think that's a good way forward. And then that way this thing flops and they have to just redo it if they want to do it again. And then, you know, here we go again. I'm sure they'll try and resurface this bullshit, but it buys a decent amount of time. So what do you reckon? You're muted.
I just wanted to say, timeline-wise, we have the final 2 days this week. So we've got tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday, and then we've got Monday through Thursday next week, and then that's it. And then we can take a breather, and the breather is going to be either up until February, I believe. I'll see if I can find a sort of a tentative date, but I'm pretty sure it's February. And then it's also heavily predicated on when the election's announced, because if the election is called before the parliament is supposed to resume, then there won't be another sitting period, at least with this form of government, whether it be Liberal Party, Labor Party, and then the senators that are up for re-election. So we need to fight this out between tomorrow and next Thursday, and then once the dust settles on how things have been voted on, fingers crossed we get the trifecta where the misinformation bill is voted down on or withdrawn, but probably better voted down on completely.
No, we want it voted down.
The duty of care amendments squashed, and then also the social media ban is squashed. The thing that we do not have to our advantage at the moment is that the bill is not actually tabled at the moment. So we need to sort of wait until they do that. But there'll be updates on our pages anyway. Any other final thoughts?
Yeah, basically, I reckon, I mean, I'll probably run it up the flagpole as well this week and see if I can get an official head count for, you know, the members of the coalition and how they're going to vote, or if anyone is suspected of defecting for that vote. I think it's good to get that. But yeah, honestly, just email the Liberal Party, smash them. As soon as the social media ban legislation comes up, we'll go through it straight away. And then we'll do a live stream about that and explain exactly what's fucking wrong with it straight off the bat. And yeah, I mean, keep doing what you're doing. Sharing it is what's making all these politicians kowtow. So it's working. People power works. We are backing them into a corner that they don't like, where they have to justify their actions. So, you know, again, I think it... I was just going to round it off by saying, you know, with the social media ban stuff, keep hammering the Liberal Party. Like, hey guys, this is an unlosable election, and yet somehow here we are. Can you sort it out? Stop trying to parent people's children. And, you know, the only thing that the government should be interested in raising is not people's kids, it's the tax-free threshold. So maybe get it together, right? Raise the tax-free threshold with the cost of living, and then we might actually get somewhere.
And I don't know if anyone knows, but Michael Schellenberger, he was one of the authors and disruptors with regard to the Twitter files a couple of years ago when Elon Musk had purchased the platform. And he has been very helpful in amplifying the message around the world. He's got a whole thread on his page where he has been dissecting everything with regards to the censorship in Australia. He's been sharing videos and commentary from each independent when they have finally tipped over the line and said that they're going to vote no. And then one interesting thing that he had done this morning / afternoon is that he made the ambitious trip from America to Canberra, of all places, and met with David Van. I just had the photo here, and probably got into his ear and said, "Hey, what the hell are you guys doing? We need you to say no against this bill because it's, you know, XYZ rubbish." So shout out to Michael Schellenberger for doing that, because he's a very big and important voice with regards to exposing a lot of this corruption. He did it with the Twitter files, and he's amplified it to well over 1 million people, and he's probably in the ear of Elon Musk with regards to things like this. So very glad that we had people like him tap into these matters as well.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, you know, this is why it's working. The sharing of all of these things that are going on in Australia is attracting international attention, and there's a lot of attention on the internationals. And when you put it in contrast with how good their freedom of speech is compared to ours, it's really just like putting the spotlight on how bad our government is comparatively, which they don't like as well. But, you know, honestly, I think like we're kind of fine in a way, because I'm very impressed with how quickly everybody has got with the program in terms of what the assignment is here, because I think now we're getting the hang of how to get an outcome out of these people, whereas previously we didn't have that. And like I was saying earlier, we didn't have as much education in terms of, say, the federal elections and other elections and things like that. So I think we're good, but you know, the algorithm is the same for us, and that is to keep being loud about it. And like I said in the original live stream when we were starting to get antsy about all of this, be as annoying as possible. Just think about all the times these people have pissed you off and use that to start irritating them about the things that they're doing that you don't like. And that's the very best thing that you can do in this scenario. You take your power back, and don't be afraid of all this shit either as well, right? At the end of the day, every single thing that happens in this space operates off of our consent. Very similarly with the vaccine, that's how they got away with it, right? You
This
don't
is
have
this
to
is where I
take
wanted
it.
to tie
It will
that
be
up into.
safe. Yeah, so it'll be safe and voluntary. You don't have to take it. It was technically true, right? It was
Until it
coercion
wasn't true.
and it was wrong. It was coercion and it was wrong. But what I'm saying is that where people may have been more trusting of the government back then, we're not in that space now. I think people have started to wake up in a very dramatic way. And so we can just simply take our hands off and not do this. You know, push comes to shove. Nobody is going to make me personally get a digital ID. I don't give a fuck. I will exit social media. So there's no need to be afraid of this, right? I guess living in your integrity sometimes comes with sacrifice in the way of not succumbing to the things that you believe are evil in this world. And so if the worst case scenario is that we're off social media until there's probably an impending revolution that comes in and overthrows all of this, then that's okay. So please, like,
But until then, do what I do. Threaten them with your job.
Yeah.
All they care about is their job. They
That's
took
true.
everyone's
That's
livelihoods
true.
away from us. Do what I did. Make a post up, say Senator David Van intends to support the misinformation bill. He's up for re-election. Put it in giant letters, make it circulate around the world, and then 2 days later, crawls out like a cockroach. Ayo.
And that's the thing. They're more afraid of us than we should be of them. I'm not afraid of these dickheads in the parliament. I could not say, like, if you sit down and meet these motherfuckers, I tell you, like, you would not be so afraid of them if you have actually spoken to half of them and seen like how weird their ways of thinking are. Like, it's literally an exercise of self-preservation for the most part, and a little bit of globalist puppetry in the background. That's about the extent of it. You know, so I just want people to stay grounded on this, you know, because we have a habit of getting, like, as a community, a little bit hysterical of the outcomes. Like, we think more into the future, but if we stopped and paused and thought about right now, what power do these gronks logically have over us? It's not a lot. If we all got together and said, go and get fucked, they don't actually have any power over us. And I'm sorry for even saying it like that, but I don't know how to, like, a medium savage. I have to say it like it is in that way, because seriously, people do not understand the power that they have. And that is what we're trying to do here. We're trying to bring people back into their sovereign roots, where you can say, I as an individual do not consent to any of this bullshit. And that's perfectly okay. I will go and make my own communities, reach out to my neighbours and convince them of what is the right thing. And then lo and behold, the most popular opinion is no longer coming from these woke fucktards that want to censor everything. It's coming from middle Australia, working class Australia, and the common sense, because we actually got off our asses, leaned into our power, and talked to our neighbours and got everyone on song. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I visualise as being so easily achievable. But it starts with people being confident in who they are, what they stand for, and what they will not tolerate, and not being afraid of some dickhead in a suit just because he's doing weird shit in a parliament. Anyway, that's my tangent. I don't have anything else to say, so I don't know about you.
No, good. I think that's it. That's a wrap for everything that's happened over the last couple of weeks. We'll keep you guys updated with regards to when this bill gets tabled. See if Michelle Rowland wants to finally get up and do some work, or maybe they've just decided to pack it all up for the year. But nevertheless, you'll find out on my pages, and then everyone else that posts as well. I'm sure that they'll be amplifying the message as well. Do us a favor, all 1,766 people that's watching, don't dip just yet. Let's have a little competition. Millie is on 9,641 followers
bruv.
on
Ain't
Insta.
no way.
And I'm on 2,618. Whoever gets to 10,000 followers first wins a cookie. So click the link, find our Instas,
Dumb.
and whoever gets to 10,000 first wins a cookie.
And by the way, the original Australians vs. the Agenda account got deleted at 30K during the pandemic, along with like multiple other accounts we've had. Like, we've just had account deletions after deletions, and they've been so slow to rise.
Yeah, if anyone doesn't know, Facebook, this is Financial Review from February 2023. Facebook takes ad money from COVID conspiracists. One of the faces of Australia's anti-lockdown movement, who recently spent time in jail for inciting an illegal gathering, has been able to buy advertising from Facebook to whip up anger towards a retiring scientist and Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews. Anthony Kaloof, who runs several conspiracy pages, began paying Facebook to spread posts on his personal Instagram last week, according to the company's own records. The ability for Mr. Kaloof to purchase the ads using Facebook's self-service tool show how little vetting goes into buying highly charged political advertising campaigns on the social media platform. It comes as Facebook Australia adjusts mass layoff that swept through the organisation at the end of the year. After the Financial Review contacted Facebook about taking money from Mr. Kaloof and whether the ads were a breach of company's COVID misinformation policies, the accounts were suspended. So I've had so many accounts that have been suspended, and it's been very well documented. I saw a comment earlier. Someone goes, how many days did I spend in jail? I spent 3 months in jail for organising protests during COVID. And if you go to my Insta and you give us a follow first, you'll see one of the pinned posts where I got the fortunate luck of the draw to be able to meet Tucker Carlson at his event in Canberra. And if anyone wants to see my ugly mugshot, this is the photo. This is my release certificate. That's proof that I went and spent time in Goulburn Supermax. So if anyone's from New South Wales that knows about anything about Goulburn, that's where terrorists, that's where, you know, the drug traffickers, and this is where high-profile killers all go to jail. And then little old me as well. But yeah, run up these numbers, please. It's the least that you can do. I've got 15 new followers. Come on.
Or
Let's
even
go,
honestly, like sharing this stream as well. I know I reminded people when we're in the infancy of this stream, but sharing it so other people can see all the information we just ran through, just in terms of the timeline, because that's what we're trying to get at least consistently going, where everyone's on the same page. So we go through the series of events like meticulously, so we all understand what these motherfuckers are doing. In a confident way that we can go and relay that information to anyone that we need to relay that information to as a collective. Because I think that's really important. I spoke a lot about being confident in the information that you go to spread, because it speaks volumes about the quality of what you're receiving. So like people can pick up on that, you know, when people say things and they're not quite sure what it means, they know. Whilst if you turn to somebody and say, this is what they did in Parliament, they did it here, 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 and here, here's the receipts on Australians versus the Agenda or wherever, wow, does it change the conversation? So, yeah. I mean, go team,
yeah.
I'm tired.
Nah, all good. So yeah, everyone, give us a follow on Insta at Australians versus the Agenda. Give Millie a follow. Millie versus the government. Try to run us up to 10K. Would really greatly appreciate it. And for those that don't know, that want a real good Christmas present instead of government censorship, I have a few t-shirts available that I've finally got the numbers correct on. So if you'd like a t-shirt that says you fucked with the wrong generation, delete the elite, make politicians afraid again, or the Australians versus the Agenda logo, australiansversusagenda.com.au.
Number 3 is
and I've
my
got
favorite
hoodies as well. So if you want some actual good Christmas presents, if you order something tonight, I will promise you that I will ship it off tomorrow. That is my pledge to you guys. But yeah, give us a follow, give the stream a share. We'll keep you updated on everything that's going on. If you want some good Christmas presents, check this out. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us on this hopefully comprehensive update with regards to the misinformation bill and the social media banning legislation.
Yeah, someone
night,
said
everyone.
someone said $27 isn't too expensive. Yeah, we're not taking the piss at all. Like, cost of living is cooked. But like people wearing t-shirts like this, it does a world of good, I think, just in terms of the optics of what becomes socially acceptable, because it's a form of presence. So I think the worst thing people can do is make bullshit t-shirt prices, because it deters people from wearing things that provoke thought in their fellow Aussies. And that's what we're really trying to do. With pretty much everything that we do, there's a huge focus psychologically on how can we get the rest of Australia on board. So yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. And we'll keep you updated for the week.
Good night, everyone. Take care.